18, the Watford fan channel. Welcome to your Watford 0 Arsenal 1 match review. Myself and Sam will be taking you through what in the end turned out to be a frustrating afternoon for the Hornets, as an Emil Smith-Rowe goal was the difference between the two sides. But before we do get into that, guys, first off, we wanted to send our thoughts and prayers to João Pedro and his family following the passing of his stepfather last week. Incredible strength from João to actually play at the weekend, and all of our thoughts and love is sent to him and his family at this incredibly difficult time. And also, we just wanted to wish Emma Saunders the best of luck in her next role at Sky Sports. Of course, you'll know Emma as the voice of Vicarage Row with Tim Coombs on a match day, and has been a match day announcer for probably since 2014-15 now, so a long time. And we wish Emma the best of luck. She was at the City Ground at the weekend reporting on the Nottingham Forest game, which was absolutely brilliant to see. And we know Emma will absolutely smash it and has been brilliant at Watford over the past few seasons. So all the best to Emma. But on to today's show, of course, we're joined by none other than Sam Yuko. Sam, how's it going, mate?
Yeah, all good. I've got a bit of a cold. It was a good day out yesterday. I know we lost, but it was quite an enjoyable away day, I thought. Decent away out.
It was a weird one where it's like, it was a rubbish result, but actually enjoyed us. We both enjoyed ourselves. I mean, we saw each other pre-match. We were kind of like thinking we're not expecting anything from the game, but it turned out to be a better away than I thought.
Yeah, no, exactly. It was a really good atmosphere. Obviously, we had a really good moment in the first half with Foster saving a penalty, which is almost like scoring an away goal as well. So decent limbs with that. Disappointing result. We'll come on to it, but all right, we were hard done by. Probably the goal should never have happened, but I didn't think we did deserve anything. I thought 1-0 probably flattered us, and Arsenal probably should have had more, but enjoyable day out nonetheless. And onwards and upwards, I suppose.
Absolutely. Please do leave a like. Thank you to everyone who's watched, by the way. Big apologies for the delay on today's stream. The Metropolitan line not serving me well on my commute back to work, commute back home. And thank you to everyone who's got their comments in on this Monday night. We'll call it the Monday Night Club, I guess. And this is in the title, Kevin wasn't our friend yesterday. Sam, look, probably the elephant in the room. Let's talk about the refereeing performance. I don't think it would have changed the course of the game in terms of Arsenal they did deserve to win the game, but I think a lot of Watford fans, rightfully so, are feeling aggrieved today. I felt annoyed, actually, Monday morning. I was on the way to work. I was thinking, wow, I can't think of many worse performances from a referee I've seen in recent times. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I mean, probably the worst since 2 weeks ago. Jared Gillett against Newcastle? We had him. So we're not being given the best refs by the FA so far, or at least we haven't had the best performances on our side. Look, obviously we will address it, but first and foremost, I don't think it's an excuse for the result. I think we deserve to lose, as I said. I think it probably should have been more than 1-0 to Arsenal, and I don't think we offered too much going forward, which is the big concern for most Watford fans at the moment, I think. It wasn't good enough. It just seemed that every single 50-50 went to Arsenal. There's this whole sort of, obviously it's just this theory that's brought up, but the Big Six bias. Obviously it's not as prominent as people say it is, but it did feel like yesterday Arsenal were just getting absolutely everything. Every small decision went their way. We didn't really get much. Corners that look like goal kicks were given as corners. It was a really difficult one to take. The goal as well, while that perhaps wasn't necessarily the ref's fault, it just wasn't in the best sort of sporting behaviour of Arsenal, in the best interests of Watford, who kicked the ball out of play. Blatant foul on Sarr. How that is not a foul. He rugby tackles him. I don't get Sarr. I understand it, right? If Sarr leaves the ball and he's running onto it and Maitland-Niles blocks him off, fine. I can understand that. But Sarr has control of the ball. He's got the ball and Maitland-Niles blocks him off and the ref carries on. VAR didn't even look at it. Abysmal decision from the ref. Really, really poor. And hopefully we can get better ones in the next few weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. As Ant says in the comments, it does feel like we have had terrible refs this season, and this is not trying to take away from the Watford performance, because as we both said, we didn't deserve to win yesterday. I don't think anyone could really argue about that. AB says Big Six bias was a recurring theme throughout the weekend. It was the same for Spurs, Everton. He felt the ref was scared, says Palais. Apologies if I pronounced that wrong. Jared Gillett again, another, I think you mentioned that, Sam. He was shocked as well. But look, on to
he was on the VAR, I think, as well.
Yesterday. Do you know what, Sam? The thing is, for me, I just feel like, why aren't ex-pros in the VAR room.
Yeah.
That is the way to solve this. Not giving it to referees. Give it to have a referee there, but have an ex-pro who can tell you why this is happening, whether it's a foul, is there intent in the challenge, etc., etc. But anyone who saw that, and I don't know how anyone can watch that back and go, that's not a foul in the build-up to the goal.
Yeah.
I mean, Sam, what I wanted to ask you was about that goal in terms of, if you didn't see it, Danny Rose kicks the ball out because he's Ozan Tufan on the ground in the middle of the Emirates pitch. Tufan starts to get up. Danny Rose is saying, Tufan, stay down, stay down. I think even Foster was saying, stay down. And then Arsenal, from the throwing, then don't give the ball back, and Lacazette plays it, and there's a couple of phases of play before it does eventually go in the back of the net. What was your take on that, Sam?
It's a difficult one because, again, as I said just before, I don't think it's a ref problem. I just don't think it was quite sporting of Arsenal. You could argue not sporting of us as Tufan trying to get up, and we told him to sit down. But if he needed treatment, he needed treatment, and fair play to him if he wanted to carry on. But ultimately, if we kick the ball out of play for an injured player, which it was an injured player, regardless of whether he wanted to get up or not, the ball should have been booted straight back to Foster, and it wasn't. And ultimately, we conceded from that. And Claudio Ranieri was absolutely fuming at full time. He was not happy at all. I think there was a small argument with him and Mikel Arteta at full time. I think they managed to sort it out between themselves, but he was not happy with Arteta. I'd be fuming. I remember I know very different circumstances, but I don't know if you remember a few years ago in the Leeds-Aston Villa game where Leeds didn't kick the ball out and they went on and scored, and about 2 players got sent off in a scrap, and eventually Leeds let Villa score. I'm not saying that should have been what happened. They're just very, for a club that, seems to promote ideas of class and sort of elegance, the opposite of that from Arsenal, and really disappointing on their part.
I think as you say, Sam, it was a massive frustration. But I also think, can you imagine if we kind of flip the tables and Watford? I mean, I put a tweet out today, and I think quite a few people agree. But if Watford had done the same thing that Arsenal did, I don't think we'd be hearing the end of it. There would have been scrutiny on Sky Sports, a lot more scrutiny. There would have been scrutiny more on Match Today. And the reaction from Arsenal fans, they would be outraged. They'd be incandescent, really.
We'd be seeing a Sky documentary on it, like something like that, or a whole podcast dedicated to it. And this is what I'm saying. I just felt yesterday really epitomised sort of the difference between the I don't even want to call them the Big Six anymore, because Arsenal are miles off what they used to be. But we'll call them the Rich Six, the Super League clubs, and the rest of the league, because decisions from the ref, the quality on show on the pitch, and that was ultimately the big divide which decided the game, and the punditry and the way that everything was seen to be on Arsenal's side just really showed that divide between the Big Six and everyone else.
Yeah, it was absolutely frustrating. I completely agree with you, Sam. It's frustrating, and you can see why that Big Six bias actually does come up a lot more in that agenda, because as you said, Sam, I think it's not as prevalent as it's made out on football Twitter, but there certainly does feel like, particularly yesterday, was an element of Arsenal getting the rub of the green. I don't think he had a great game for both sides, but particularly for Watford, I thought he lost control of the game.
Don't get me wrong. I think Danny Rose probably should have been sent off.
How did he not get a yellow for that? Penalty
Rose was lucky. Rose was lucky to be on the pitch. A lot of challenges we should have got booked for, we were overly aggressive with. Just before we move on from the ref, how on earth was that a red card for you, Kuska? He got awful decision, and I think that's an element where VAR needs to change. I'm not saying check every single yellow card, but second yellow cards like that, I don't see why. I just don't get it. Just saying that taking physicality out of the game. I thought they wanted to increase the amount of physicality in the game this season. We've seen much stronger tackles go in, and that's a strong challenge. Yes, it's very firm. Yes, but was it a fair tackle? Yes. He flattened. Who was it? Was it Maitland-Niles? I can't remember who it was.
Was it Lokonga?
Lokonga, maybe. I can't remember who it was. But it was, yeah.
Well, he gets the ball, Sam. He gets the ball.
He gets the ball. Takes
people will say that it's the follow through, but actually he gets the ball with his left foot, and then I think that's a harsh yellow card. I really do believe. I think that's a really harsh yellow card. To be honest, mate, I actually thought Kutska had a good game actually overall. Sam, look, we mentioned that Watford didn't deserve the game. What areas did you feel that we did well in, particularly, and built and maybe improved on that Southampton performance? And what areas do you think we still need to be working on a bit more?
The improvement for me, Ben Foster, first of all, thought he was absolutely magnificent yesterday. I've been a massive critic of Ben But yesterday he was brilliant. The penalty save, obviously, superb. Wasn't the best penalty from Aubameyang, but a keeper's got to save it, and gave us some good scenes in the away end, which is all we want. And he didn't really make it into any highlights, but he made a really good save from Gabriel as well from a header, which was just in front of the away end, which was a really, really good save. And generally looked much more composed. His shot stopping, I don't think, has ever been in question, but I just think generally much better all round performance. And I think we did look more solid at the back. Obviously, Arsenal could have been 3 or 4 up with, if you're not including the VAR goals and the offside goals. And I think a large part of that is Nkulu. I was really, really impressed with him. Looked really composed. Looked like he's able to play with the ball at his feet, not scared to put a challenge in, and managed to win the ball back quite a few times as well. And I think a question that a lot of fans are asking now is, when do we partner up Sierrata and Nkulu? Because I think there could be something there for us. I know it's probably early days to judge Nkulu, but it does look like there could be something there.
Yeah, agreed. I have to absolutely agree with you, Sam, there. Like, I thought, I spoke to my dad next to me, and we were just like, Nkulu's positioning was refreshing to see, because I think sometimes with Watford centre-backs, as we've seen in the past, they're out of position and they're making that last-ditch tackle, which they don't need to make. I never felt Nkulu was out of position. You could tell that he's not as quick as he used to be, but he was comfortable on the ball. I thought what was really refreshing to see as well was the way he was organising the defence. I think that's what Sissoko does quite well. But in Nkulu, there was an element of calmness about him. But he was telling, look, Cathcart, move over. Kiko, tuck in. Rose, push on. That sort of communication we've lacked, I think, over the last few weeks. And Nkulu stepped up there. Let's have a little look through your comments. It was Tavares, actually, who made a flip after he lost control of the ball. And that's the reason why Kutska got the second yellow. It does feel like that. I mean, Alan Smith's commentary, I don't know if you saw it back, Sam. Alan Smith was kind of like, oh, it's a definite red card. I'm not going to do the voice. It was definite red card at the people voice, etc. Basically saying, like, look, the only thing I would say about Kutska there is he gave the referee a decision to make, but at the same time, it's not a yellow card.
He can't let the ball go. I don't know, because if he left the ball, then we'd all be saying, why aren't you going for that?
I think it was more for me, Sam. I don't know whether he had to. I don't think it's a yellow card, but I don't know. I don't think he maybe had to swing his. Do you know, it was quite an aggressive.
I think that's an impact that Claudio Ranieri's had in the last week, not necessarily on the aggressiveness, but just on making that tackle in the first place. I think there were so many. We didn't do a match reaction after Southampton, but or at least I wasn't on it. Did you do it last week? Yeah. No. And the problem was, I thought, with Che Adams' goal, too many men were standing around the ball. Sissoko and Kutska was one of them. And I think as soon as any Arsenal players got around the box, you could see Kutska, Sissoko, whoever it was in there, were getting, really, really snapping onto them and getting to their feet quickly. And I think that it was perhaps an instruction from Ranieri to go in like that. Not making assumptions, but I think that was an area I was encouraged by, even though he got sent off, was that players look much more organised in terms of going for the ball as well.
Do you feel that the midfield gave the defence a bit more protection this week? Or do you feel that it's a case of we do need to just sit perhaps Kutska in front of the back four and just say, look, you break it up, similar to what Barami did in that 15-16 season. You said, look, Kutska, you sit in that hole, break up play, give it to Tufan, give it to Sissoko, release the wide players.
This is where we're missing Peter Etebo.
Peter, go on, mate. Yeah,
Etebo would be that perfect player in there. Sorry to interrupt there.
No, go for it, mate.
Just in terms of releasing the ball, I thought Etebo was probably better at that than all of the others at the moment. Sissoko, I'm really impressed with. I really like Sissoko. Kutska's picking up his form again since Ranieri's come in. One thing worries me a bit. I don't know if I've been too impressed by Tufan, to be honest with you. He hasn't been bad by any stretch, but he just seems to have had meh games. I think that's the best way to sum it up. I don't think he's had a bad game yet. I just think he's been very meh in every game he's played and hasn't really had a big impact. So I think that's perhaps an area to look at. I thought yesterday we played Tom Cleverley in there. I thought he probably would have been a better bet. I'm not saying it would have made an impact because, ultimately, the big problem is, again, a lack of progression from midfield into the attack. But I was surprised that Tufan played instead of Tom Cleverley.
Do you know what, Sam? I think that's opened the discussion really about the front three in terms of, I think, again, it's back-to-back defeats, but it's back-to-back games where I never felt really at any point that we were going to score. And if we were going to score, it was going to be from an Arsenal mistake, i.e. Ramsdale fluffing it, and then King should have really scored or at least squared it to Sarr in the middle. But the front three's a debate that continues to rumble on with Watford fans because we've got Josh King up front, who I think is best in a two for me. I think him and Dennis might be the way to go and go for a four in midfield. But then you've got Ismail Assar, who again has a quiet game. You then got Emmanuel Dennis, who's come back in. So I don't think we can be too harsh on Emmanuel. But Ismail Assar, what's your thoughts on that situation? Because I've seen you put a couple of tweets out saying, what is everyone else's thoughts? But what's your thoughts on it?
He looks disinterested. I'm not saying that that's necessarily him wanting a way out, but I think he just looks fed up. He looks like, I think we can all accept that he's the best player in this team by a mile, ability-wise. He'll go on to play for a big club, without doubt, and he'll probably leave in the summer, realistically. I think he looks fed up with the fact that, all right, there's a couple of times where we look like we can go forward, yet we go backwards. He looks fed up with the quality that's around him at times, that he'll put a good ball into the box and no one will be in there. And I think eventually it's taken his toll in the last 3 games. And I'm not saying he's given up, because he does still put in the hard yards, and he played almost as an extra fullback yesterday. But I just think he looks so low on confidence, and he just needs that boost. Whether taking him aside for a couple of games, I probably wouldn't do that, because next few games we're going to be looking to hit teams on the counter attack, such as Man United, Man City, Chelsea, Leicester, and he's probably the perfect player for that. But I also think it's a midfield problem, not getting the ball to him enough and fast enough. It's certainly an area that needs to be addressed, because if we're not getting the best out of Ismail Assar, then we're in big trouble.
Yeah, agreed. I just don't know if this system gets the best out of him, Sam. Like, we've seen him put in good performances, but I think the problem with it yesterday was we were playing deep, right, and we were looking to hit Arsenal on the counter attack. But when Sarr was getting the ball, it was like midway inside our own half. So it's almost expecting him to run the length of the pitch, beat 5 Arsenal players and score, or set something up. But it just feels like when he's picking up the ball, it's not in the right areas. It's very deep. It's not getting the best out of him.
And I disagreed with you at the start of the season. You said you wanted to see a 4-4-2. And I said 4-3-3 works so well in the Championship. But I think I'm seeing more and more now how we're probably better suited to the 4-4-2 in terms of sitting deep and hitting teams on the counter attack. Probably play Sarr on the right while that was still required defensive duties. I think it better suits him and not the team's game as a whole. I just feel that with the 4-3-3 on that right-hand side in the Championship, we had so much time to get Kiko and Sarr really close to each other, overlapping. Premier League, you simply can't do that. And in many ways, Sarr is left pretty much up there by himself, because there's no one supporting him. So I think the 4-4-2 would really help us, I think.
Yeah, agreed. Will says there needs to be a system where we can pivot between a 4-3-3 defensively and then a 4-4-2 when attacking. I mean, exactly. I mean, the 4-4-2, that's what was so good, I think, about the Everton passage of play was João was kind of going in narrow, but then Dennis was really tucking in from the left-hand side, and it was him and King linking up so well. And I think that's the way to go, Sam. I mean, look, Dennis's best performance for me this season was obviously Villa. Most impactful was Villa at home, played as the lone striker. Josh King, best performance, Everton away, played as the lone striker. Why not play them together? I just think potentially, as Tommy says, Leicester played a 4-4-2, surely more chance of goals with 2 up top. And it's kind of cast your mind back to 15-16, Sam, under Keegan.
Yeah. And just on that bit of side Watford news, I saw rumours today about Craig Shakespeare perhaps coming back.
Yeah, and what's your thoughts on that one?
I'd be really in favour of that. I doubt he would come back after how the Nigel Pearson reign sort of ended. And I think he was offered the job, wasn't he? I vaguely remember he was offered the job when Pearson got sacked, and he was like, "Get me out of here."
Great shout. I remember Adam Leventhal tweeting about that.
Yeah, and we went with, was it Mullins and Stack, wasn't it, for the rest of the season, for the last 2 games.
Love it.
And I think I'd like him to come back. I think he got on really well with the players, and obviously he had a really good relationship with Ranieri. He won the league with Leicester with that. But I doubt I could see him coming back after what happened with Nigel Pearson.
Yeah, I think the way it ended, it's probably unlikely that's going to happen. Let's have a little look through your comments. Thank you to everyone who's watching at the minute. Really, really do appreciate it, especially after the delayed start. Charlotte in the comment section, Sarr's rather lost his mojo. Hopefully Ranieri can get it back. Maybe he and Sierralta will get a boost from the international break. Looking forward to seeing Sierralta back. Hopefully for the Manchester United game after the international break. And Charlotte also says Shakespeare would be great. However, his loyalty to Pearson, as Sam said, probably wouldn't allow that to happen. There was an interesting comment up here, Sam, before we go back to the game. Rob says, I would go for a 3 at the back. And this is something we've discussed before. So 5 at the back, which goes to a 3, and drop Sarr to the bench for the Man United game. Messina, Kiko on the wings, and can switch to a 4-4-2 whilst one wing back is progressing up the pitch.
Ooh, it's a lot to take in there.
Do you think Ranieri, after the Liverpool game where he went to a back three, will ever go back to the three?
I think he will at some point. Perhaps not in the way that we saw it against Liverpool. I still really want to see Messina as a centre back. I just think he'll be better suited to that than he is at full back. And I think we've been saying that. I think the feeling when Vladimirovic came in last season was that it would be a three. I think we said it would be Messina, Wilmot, and Troost-Ekong or Cathcart. I can't remember. It was before Sierralta came into favour. So I'd be really interested to see what Messina would be like. It's probably not the games to sort of experiment with that sort of thing because teams can tear us apart if it goes badly wrong. Ronaldo could have a field day, for example, against us. Bruno Fernandes would pick up more space in the middle. For me, against Man United, it's about getting as many men in the middle as possible and just congesting it, which is why I perhaps go for a 4-4-2 and sitting deep, or going for a 4-2-3-1 and playing someone like Tom Cleverley just to run about in there. But yeah, it's a difficult one. The question with the five at the back is where does everyone fit in terms of runners as well? Because my big worry with it, I know it was a different manager, but that last 20 minutes of Brighton away when it was five at the back, it was absolutely awful.
Carnage, wasn't it?
Yeah, really bad. I think Troy came close to scoring, but that was it.
Great
So
memory.
I think we will see it again at some point, but not anytime soon.
Yeah, I hope that answers your question or comment, Rob. Just before we get back onto the game as well, it was a really good comment actually from Tommy. Tommy Weedon rather. Why does Dan Gosling not get a game? If he was signed solely to get us up, why was it a long contract? So he signed a 3-year deal. He has played well in the Prem and scored goals. Doesn't even make the matchday squad now. I mean, it's a weird one.
You need a squad though, don't you? You need a squad, and there will be injuries at some point, which will allow Dan Gosling to get back on the bench. But I don't really see where he fits into the side as a whole, particularly if the problem in the middle is the lack of creativity. And I'll say it again, I haven't said it for weeks, but I said it a lot. In January, we need to call back one of Zinchenko or Deli Bashiru. One of those two who are having very good loan spells this season. Just get one of those two back in January, get them in the middle, get them creating things.
Yeah.
Interesting as well, by the way, because a lot of people question Domingos Quina and why we let him go. He's now playing in the under-23s for Fulham, not getting a game. So I think that just goes to show there's something more going on there. I suggested an attitude problem. I don't exactly know, but there's a reason why a player who was signed for the first team is now in the under-23s.
That is mad, isn't it? It's actually quite sad to see that as well, because I thought Keano had a real bright future with us, but that is the way the football world works. There was one comment here which I definitely agree with. Rob, Dennis, and King as a front two would be a real handful. I think that partnership, the pace and the athleticism of those two, particularly with King's finishing, if his confidence is up. Do you think that? Sorry, Sam. Just before we kind of go back onto yesterday, do you feel that chance that King missed? We're kind of going back onto yesterday. Do you think that chance King missed is going to dent his confidence? Because the only reason I ask is I'm almost getting the impression it's early days, but I do think King's a confidence player. I know a lot of strikers are, but I do think he's a mental player as well.
I get you. It was very much a striker situation that he only had eyes for goal when he sees the goalkeeper out of his net. And in hindsight, he'll probably say he probably knows he should have squared it. We all could see at the time he should have squared it. It was a real, hands in your head situation for everyone in the away end yesterday when it happened. It looked much more difficult than it actually was when looking back at the replays of it. But I don't know how much it will dent his confidence because I think he actually is playing well. I thought he played well again yesterday, Josh King, albeit he didn't have that many chances. But again, that's a midfield problem. We're not creating anything. And that's ultimately why I'm hesitant to criticise the strikers.
Sure. Look, Sam, going back onto yesterday, we mentioned it was a frustrating day. But in terms of, you mentioned the positives, you mentioned Ben Foster, you mentioned Nkulu. You also mentioned that, I think Watford played okay, but we didn't deserve anything from the game. I think that's a fair assessment.
Yeah.
What positives can we build on going into this run? Because as we mentioned a lot of times on the channel, the run we've got now is after the international break. Man United, Leicester, Chelsea, Man City as an X4. Probably one of the toughest runs, including the Arsenal game as well, that the league is going to see this season. So what positives can Ranieri build from yesterday, despite the defeat and despite us potentially not deserving anything out of the game? But what did you take away as a fan that gives you a confidence that we can get something out of the next four?
I thought there was fight. I think the one thing for me that frustrates me as a fan is when when players just don't look like they're trying. I'm not saying they don't, but it's when it looked like, for example, Liverpool 5-0 down, players walking, or sorry, I think we started playing well at 5-0 down, but at 3 or 4-0 down, players walking around. Southampton, Newcastle in the first half was the big one, just showed a real lack of intensity and effort. But I thought yesterday we really did put a good effort in there, really did try. And I think that's something we can certainly take a big positive from. I also thought in the Southampton game there were positives in there. We carried on going till the very end. The thing is, you can't be saying things like this, taking fight out of games and saying it's getting better, we're making improvements. Ranieri said we're on the right track. That's not going to keep you in this league. You need to get results, and we can't go through these next 4 games as hard as they are, picking up absolutely nothing. There's an opportunity there against Man United, and there's an opportunity there against Leicester as well. All right, Chelsea and Man City, much more difficult games for us. But there are opportunities in those first 2 games that we need to try and get something from. And I think if we apply that level of fight and application as well, because you can see Ranieri had a game plan that the players stuck to as well. If we can apply that and probably show a bit more attacking nous, then I think we'll be completely fine.
Yeah, I agree with you, mate. As Tom says in the comments, defensively positive, especially centre-backs. Thought both were really good yesterday. Fair play to Cathcart. I thought
Cathcart did well yesterday.
Thought he had a good game yesterday, as did, I think, Rose struggled. I think Rose did struggle, to be honest with you. Kiko, there were some good signs that he was getting back
much
to
better from Kiko. I don't know if maybe dropping him for Ngakia has probably pushed him a bit. Now there's real competition in the right back spot and the left back spot, and that's something we haven't said in a long time at Watford. Is that these defensive positions, even at centre back now, they're probably all pushing each other even harder than ever, and that hopefully should lift performance levels.
Sure. You know what? It's interesting actually. Vic Bate on Twitter, a really good Watford account to follow. He says, "Look, twice this season, Watford have been outplayed away from home. Somehow hung in there, only to being done by a refereeing decision. Table and season would be very different with hard-earned draws at Leeds and Arsenal." Now, personally, Sam, I don't think outplayed. I think outplayed is probably personally a little bit over the top in terms of particularly in the last 10 minutes, 15. Watford grew into the game, I thought. We actually had a bit of sustained pressure without doing a lot with it. So maybe outplayed is the correct term. But I absolutely agree with the last point of that in terms of tables and season would be very different with hard-earned draws at Leeds and Arsenal. I think that's one aspect of Kike's team, which I do look back on. When we played badly, we still picked up points. I just feel at the minute we're not playing great. And ultimately, we could have potentially snuck a point yesterday. And it's those sort of games like Leeds away, like Arsenal, like Southampton, Tottenham away is a bit of a theme emerging that we're not picking up these draws that could really, really can make the difference towards the end of the season.
Yeah. I just feel like as well, when we go 1-0 down, we just seem to run out of ideas in a couple of games. Have we come from behind yet this season to win a game? We drew against Newcastle, but Everton, yeah, of course. So obviously that's not necessarily speaking about the whole season, but I think yesterday, Southampton for most part of it, Brighton, Leeds, we just didn't really look like we were going to respond at any point after going 1-0 down. And that's something that does need to be looked at, because realistically, there will be games where we trail a lot this season. It's just about showing that energy, fighting spirit. Ranieri probably needs to look at himself as well. I really like the job he's doing, but perhaps, letting the handbrake off a bit more for that last 5-10 minutes probably wouldn't have done any harm, because we talk about goal difference being important, but might as well lose 2-0 if you're going to lose 1-0 in that situation.
It was like a 4-2-5.
Yeah, I thought he bought on Ashley Fletcher too late. He rates Fletcher, it seems, and I like Fletcher's movement. He seems like a proper centre forward as well. I know it hasn't always gone too well for him in his career, but hopefully he can have an impact with us this season.
Yeah, he's one of those strikers who's kind of like a little bit awkward to play against, particularly when you're playing against a quick front three. I'm not saying Fletcher's not quick, but a really quick front three of King, Sarr, Dennis. King offers Fletcher offers something a little bit different in terms of aerially as well.
You know what?
So quite a good option off the bench.
Yeah, his shot last week that McCarthy made a brilliant save from. Some of the most intelligent centre forward play I've seen from a Watford striker in a long time, in terms of having his back to goal and spinning around and having a shot. So hopefully he can keep that up, stay fit, and wouldn't shock me if we see more of him in the coming weeks.
And Lee does make a good point that it's hard to let the handbrake off with 10 men. Yeah, that was the last, what was it, 7 minutes of the game we were playing with 10 men. And look, Watford gave it a really good go. I think as Sam said, there was fight yesterday. I don't think anyone can say that Watford didn't give it their all, but unfortunately it was a little bit short. Sam, look, there was a good question here from Russ. What's your thoughts on Loser? Our biggest summer signing, he can't get in the team. It's that is a weird situation.
I forgot about him. Look, I'd be patient with Imran Loser. I haven't been impressed when we've seen him play. The comparison that I think a lot of people have made, at least I have, is Abdoulaye Doucouré. It took him some time to get up to speed, and eventually he was brilliant. So unless he is drastically bad when he plays the next few times, I wouldn't make judgment, and I'm sure we'll see him sometime soon.
Sure, we'll see. I mean, look, I'm
Christmas period. We got a bit busy schedule coming up, and I can't picture a time where Imran Loser won't be featured at all in those games.
What's so weird, Sam, is he's ripping it up from Morocco. I mean, last international break, he's been called up again with Adam Messina, but last international break, forgot who they played, but 2 games looked brilliant. I saw a couple of compilations of it and watched the game, but he just looked really tidy on the ball. Like his awareness, his positioning was good. It just feels like it, but I guess the big question from Watford fans is, if you're going to spend 9 million on a player, why didn't we spend that on a centre-back? Or why didn't we spend that on a creative midfielder rather than a player who hasn't got a look in? So can you understand that point of view, which is like, are we directing our resources in the right way if he's not going to play any football for Watford?
Yeah, I think that's a question that's been going on for a long time now as well, probably since the FA Cup season, which is why did we sign Craig Dawson when we probably needed a striker more? Or, last season, for example, when we needed a striker and we invested in certain attacking midfield areas, for example, which we did need, but I would argue we needed a striker more. Not going to go too much into recruitment because it is a big problem and it's becoming more and more evident by the week because we were happy at the time, but I think there are big questions by the Pozzos at the moment, not in terms of wanting them out, but in terms of the direction of the club. And it's a conversation for another day, I think.
Yeah, I mean, Cristiano Gioretta did, obviously, with the new Hive live show in midweek, Inside the Hive. I've got that correct, haven't I?
Yeah.
Inside the Hive. Cristiano Gioretta was on it. And look, I don't think we learned a whole lot from it, if I'm completely honest. There was a couple of questions about the Ben Wilmot situation where they kind of just said, and Will Hughes wanted to leave, was basically confirmed, but we knew that anyway. Ben Wilmot, they basically said, look, he's probably not as good as the centre-backs we've got at the minute, so you need to go out and play because we can't guarantee you game time, along those sort of lines. But it's, the academy stuff surprised me, Sam. In terms, they don't saw that about, like, basically they want to bring players through, but, we haven't got a great track record. But that's, as Sam said, look, that's a conversation for another day. One thing I wanted to wrap up the show on was, as Pally says in the comments, thoughts on goalkeeper Okoye transfer. Now, Watford have signed Maduka Okoye from Sparta Rotterdam, the Nigerian keeper, in the region of £5 million. He joins officially on January the 1st, but not coming until the summer, and he stays on loan in Holland for the rest of the season. Yes, Watford have signed Maduka Okoye. Sam, young goalkeeper, Nigerian goalkeeper, Truce to Kong, Etibo, both commenting on his Instagram post straight away. I think Luorns did a stat about how his aggression coming out of the box has gone up quite a bit, actually, this season. He used to be quite a conservative goalkeeper, but now he's looking to come out of his box quite a bit. What do you think the reasoning is behind Okoye joining, and from the club's point of view, why they're looking to try and sign a player like him?
I think it shows Daniel Batman's probably off. I think Batman's probably incredibly frustrated at the moment that he's not in the team, particularly after having a very good Euros. All right, I know I said Foster's improved yesterday, but has he been unbelievable? Probably not. And Batman was probably felt hard done by to be dropped after his injury as well. And there were rumours with him leaving in the summer, I think, to Ajax and Arsenal. And with 2 years left on his deal, it'll be a year left in the summer. If I was him, would I sign a new deal? Probably not. So I imagine it's a Daniel Batman replacement.
Yeah, shame. I think I absolutely agree with you, Sam. It seems inevitable that Dan will leave. Similar to when, to be honest, when we brought Loser in, I was like, that's the end of Hughes. It's just they're trying to prepare, which is good planning, in fairness. But it's a shame to see Batman, move. I think he's probably going to move on. Obviously not confirmed. We don't know anything about it. But Nick says, I'd be frustrated if Foster was in front of me. Sitting on the bench is no good for Daniel Batman, and Ranieri just doesn't rate Batman, and I'm not sure why. So we'll see how that situation develops. But yeah, Watford have signed Maduka Okoye from Sparta Rotterdam in the region of £5 million. That's where we're going to wrap up today's review. Sam, it's been a pleasure. Actually not too painful after that result.
Not too painful.
it was quite an enjoy. As I said, it was a weird one because we don't want to see Watford lose, but it was an enjoyable away day overall.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, and I'm
No, it's
excited
not.
for Leicester as well. Leicester will be a good one in a few
Yeah,
weeks. Buzzing for that one.
You're going Leicester, right?
Yeah, I'm going Leicester.
Good man. I'll be there as well. Thank you to everyone actually came. Well, I've met loads of subscribers yesterday, which is amazing. So really do appreciate all the kind comments. And if you ever see us at a game, make sure you do say hello. We'll come and have a chat. That'll be absolutely fantastic. Maybe a pint as well if you're over 18. Caroline,
Jacob will be signing shirts in the next away game. I'm expecting fans with culture on the back of their shirts.
Oh, mate, get me in the midfield. Don't forget to subscribe, as Caroline says. Hit that like button and tickle that bell before you get. Maybe not the right. That was that. You know, have you seen Robbie Lyle get baited out?
Yeah. That's one of those.
Caroline, you've done me there. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Subscribe to WD18. Hit the notification bell. Caroline sent me. My head is gone. My head is absolutely gone. Make sure you do like, subscribe to WD18, comment down below your thoughts. Follow Sam and myself on Twitter. Link is in the description below. We'll see you very, very soon. Take care, guys. Cheers. I'll be on it.